Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. Got a little music playing in the background. The music being used by everyone knows. If anyone wants to get in and jump into the fray with me, please do so. All the comments expressed here are those of mine and mine alone. Do not belong to any other organization or group or people or agency or department. They're mine. And if you're under 18 years of age, please. That's it. So we got a few things to cover today, and I need to look up this camera. So I'm going to focus on that. So here's the thing. We got a lot of news to cover today. We covered a lot of it today at our noontime show. If you can catch these shows weekdays, noon and at 6 p.m. Basically, it starts out with me just kind of introducing myself and then telling you that, we're getting ready to go into the show, and we'll go kind of review a few stories, stuff like that, if you don't mind. There's a few things out there that are really fun to get into. So let me go ahead and drop out this music in the background. Try to fade it down. Click, click, and click. Okay, pause that. Go back to the comments and post over here on the other side. If you would like to join me on stage, there's the link. It's showing up over on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, should be on Facebook as well. You can go to that link, come in and join with me on stage. However, I do have one request of you. I don't mind entertaining all kinds of different thoughts and ideas and expressions on here. But the one thing I will require is that there's civility, that there's decency, that there's humanity, there's respect for other views, and there's respect for life. As well as, if you have anti-Semitic views, you're entitled to those, but don't bring it on this show. We'll not tolerate it. And if you have any kind of hatred for any other groups, even though you may shroud that in love, you say, quote, love kind of thing, well, I can tell you that, no, that's not tolerated either. And you might say that that's not very accepting. Well, yeah, it is, because I'm trying to protect myself from some stupidity, okay? If you're stupid about things, I'm going to just shut you off. That's all there is to it. But you're more than welcome to come on here. I'm not going to turn anyone away until you turn yourself away. That's entirely on you. So what's been going on today, everyone? Hey, earlier today we did have Rachel Reed from out in Kansas with us for a few minutes during the lunchtime hour. And it's always good to have people in here watching and participating and joining in the conversation. Rachel is our, she's a board member over on the C4 side of our organization on the Transgender and Diverse Veterans of America Action Group, the one that's at the bottom of your screen right now. She's a board member on that, and she's also our Kansas State Director for that side of the organization. So anyway, let's just jump right in. We'll go take a look over at Microsoft Bing, and we'll pull up a few things and just see what happens from there, okay? Let's just see where the conversation goes from there. Who knows? Whatever's out there, we'll jump into it. And we'll come back and spend a little bit of time on Twitter. Yeah. All right, I just commented to Elon Musk. Come back in a few minutes. Let's see if Elon has responded. One can only hope, right? Okay, here we go. Here we go. So let me find my other page. We'll start sharing the screen. Let me go over here to the other window. And where did I put it? Florida moves to ban. Okay, I think that's probably where we want to start, right there. All right, we'll start down here at the end of the page. The first thing is, I'm not turning the volume on for this. This is Harvard President announces advisory council to combat anti-Semitism on campus. Good. I don't mind that at all. Do everything that you can to combat it. Don't let this kind of ignorant thinking come onto the campus. However, I will say this in loud as I possibly can. You cannot stop the protesting for people who support stupid ideas. And if they are anti-Semitic, well, you can't shut them down. You can't do that. That's not who we are. If they were yelling fire in a theater, yeah. If they were yelling bomb on a plane or a ship or a train, yeah, you could do it then. But not here. You can't. There are limitations on free speech. There is no such thing as an absolute right to anything. Period. No right is absolute. Not free speech, nothing. Okay. So, but they have a right to protest there. As much as I disagree with that kind of stuff, as much as I disagree with any person supporting Hamas, the terrorist group Hamas? No, no, you can't stop them. You surely disagree with them. And I mean, I'm not the only one who thinks like that. So there's a person over on the far right side who is a darling of the constitutional lawyers over on that side who also says the same thing as I do. And I actually reached out to him yesterday after I saw his article. I put out an email to everyone about it, and I stated those kind of things as to what I thought about it all. And then I read his article that he had published too, but he published it a couple of days before. But he and I are basically on the same page with that one, because as much as we despise the thought or the idea that's behind all of this, the anti-Semitism, the pro-Hamas, the terrorist group Hamas stuff, I just, no, it's just got nasty, ugly, just, oh shit, no, not doing it. We're not doing that, folks. But I'm glad to see that the president of Harvard is actually announcing to do something about it. Now, actually, you can't stop the protest, but you can at least educate people and at least try to train them or teach them in the ways that are actually decent, being a decent human being to other people. Come on, that's easy, right? So this was actually Harvard President Claudine Gay announced the creation of an advisory council to combat anti-Semitism on campus after weeks of intense criticism over the university response. Now, we'll be very clear. Her response is actually after the criticism and after people were threatening to pull away money. So it's performative to a certain degree. It is certainly performative. However, it's a step in the right direction of teaching people that anti-Semitism and any kind of hatred for your fellow human beings is wrong. Now, here's the hypocrisy. These same people right here from Fox News, they will rail against transgender people and LGBT people and any minorities they don't like. And if you oppose them having their say on campus, they will absolutely run you down. And I mean, whatever, they will do everything they can to stop you. Now, there are a few reasonable people out there who don't agree with doing those kind of things, but nonetheless, I mean, it happens there. I mean, absolutely. There's hypocrisy right here in this statement, especially with Fox News as being the one that's running it. Da-da-da-da, Stephen Soros. Okay. Yeah, published 3 hours ago on Fox News. There's a lot of hypocrisy in that darn statement, because you want them to shut down all the conversations about anti-Semitism on campus and a pro-Hamas support, but yet you're fine whenever they talk about, going after LGBT people and all that kind of stuff. You're fine with that, though. So your hypocrisy is showing. It really is. I support the right for people to go out and actually protest and have their voices heard. That's just who we are. That's who we are. We come by it naturally through time, through the history of the United States, and probably beyond this, but I only looked through from 1880 up to 1970, roughly, in terms of campus protesting. This stuff has been going on all the time throughout that whole period of time. The progressive era, the Gilded Age, that period of time, and through up to the First World War, and then the interwar period, all that. There were people protesting all kinds of stuff. There were people protesting in support of Nazis, in support of eugenics and all that kind of stuff out there that we know is just horribly wrong. They were all protesting in support of. There were some protesting in defense of. There were people protesting because they were promised a bonus after World War I and they never got it. And the veterans all went out and had a big march on DC. And there were campus protests about the militarization of the campuses. I mean, that stuff's been going on for a long, long time. But that's fine. That's fine. We may disagree with the message. We may disagree with the idea, but you cannot morally or ethically or more constitutionally interfere. That's probably the more correct way. You can definitely have your voice heard. This stuff on the image right here that's taking place now, this Stop the Genocide in Gaza, I have some really strong opinions about that one. I really do. I really do. They have a right to be here saying these kind of things. However, the genocide that's taking place in Gaza is directly attributable to the fact that Hamas is the one using the Palestinian people as human shields and stopping the two-state solution. That's a direct result of what Hamas wants. And Hamas wants, actually, in their declaration, they say the destruction of Israel. Now, yeah, there's going to be people saying, but you can't have this kind of protest on the campus because of these things going on over here, that it encourages that. No, 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 no. They still have the right to protest. They are not providing any kind of material support to anyone else unless they're collecting up money and giving it and taking in all this money and sending it over there to Hamas, not the Palestinian relief aids. Now, yes, I know that there's going to be money that gets crossed up in there somewhere and Hamas gets its hands on it. But if it's helping the Palestinian people, and that's the direct thing, you're doing everything in your power to do so, and you're making sure that's exactly what you're trying to do, then fine. But if your money is directly aimed toward going to Hamas, then you've got a slight problem right there, folks. You have got a problem with that one. But you have the right to protest about it over here, wherever you are. So you have to be really careful of that. It's the nuances in there matter, okay? So you have to be cautious of how you say it and how you word those things. You have to draw a clear line. If you're out here protesting in support of Palestinian people, and you understand the disconnect between the Palestinian people and Hamas, who seeks only the destruction of Israel, and people are going to say, but Israel occupies the land illegally. No, they don't occupy the land illegally. And here's the craziest thing. Yeah, it was called Palestine. That whole region was called Palestine before 1947. Sure, it was. But what was it called about 300 years before that? 300 years before that? And 300 years before that? So the only thing you're concerned with is from 1947 to now. But if you start digging into it, really, you're not really concerned about that, because you have had generational hatred for Israel. And it's just convenient that Israel in 1947, the United Nations and the United States and a bunch of other victors in the Second World War, the people who won the war, they decided that, if you see 6 million people killed, 6 million Jewish people killed in Germany, and you see that kind of the Holocaust stuff that occurred there under the Nazi regime, 6 million Jews, who in their right mind would not have compassion for this whole group of people because one other group of people hated them so badly? Come on, folks. So yeah, there was this deep sense that we needed to do something to help secure the future of the Jewish people. Right after World War II, yeah, absolutely should. I mean, what better way to show them that we care about people than to give them a place where they can actually call it home? And it happens to be historically right there around Jerusalem and Tel Aviv and that whole region right there. I mean, that's who was Jesus? If you're a Christian and who was Jesus, and you say, well, he was Jewish, he was Hebrew, where'd he live? Where'd he walk the lands? Right there, and what later became known as Palestine. Okay? What's the problem? So the problem is 1947 is just an arbitrary point because you still hate Jewish people. You're no different than the Nazis. In 1947, when they all came together, and all the winners of the war, thank God we won, right? All the winners of the war actually decided that 6 million Jews had died in the Holocaust in World War II at the hands of Nazi exterminators. But do you know who else was in that group that got killed as well? That the Jewish, or that the Hebrew people, not Hebrew, shoot. Don't get my words in here. That the Nazis also wanted to destroy everyone with a disability. If you had a physical deformity, it didn't matter to them if you were German or not, Austrian or Jewish or whatever. They didn't want you around. You didn't conform to their idea, their eugenicist eugenics, the eugenicist view of what an Aryan was supposed to be like. An Aryan is not Jewish. An Aryan is not disabled. An Aryan is not lesbian, gay, trans, bisexual, any of those things. So they were executing also all the LGBT people, particularly, well, also trans people. There were trans people in Germany then, folks. And Germany was executing them. Yes, it's true. Go check it out. Dig into your own history right there. So that's what was going on in Germany. They were trying to eliminate the entire Jewish race right there in Germany. Now, where does that kind of hatred come from that could be brought up to the surface to make something happen like that? Where? There was a hatred for Jews long before World War II. Hitler himself had a huge problem with the Jewish people for a long time, decades before. So did many other people. A lot of them came to the United States, and they're still here. And their thinking is just as effed up now as it was then. But it's those people who, whenever we see that massive destruction of a whole group of people, we have a sense of humanity in it. Don't we have some humanity in us to want to do something to help them and get them back to a place that they have some historical connection to? Well, yeah, we're going to put them back around Israel and in that area of Palestine. It used to be part of the Ottoman Empire, but further back it was part of Rome. and let me see, Saladin even had some of it at one time. You know, the Muslims owned it on and off, back and forth, and the Christians came in and got it in the Crusades. And stop with the 45 bullshit, the 1947 bullshit. All you're doing is wanting another excuse to kill Jewish people or anyone you don't like. And so that's my plea with anyone out there. If you're over there right now, support the Palestinian people, but stop supporting Hamas, which seeks to destroy a group of people simply because they don't like them or they've been taught not to like them. And it's a generational, thousands of years old thing. It's not since 1947, folks. It's not since 1988 either, when they wrote their charter for Hamas. It's not since 2006 or 7, whenever Israel pulled out of Gaza, hoping that the people there and the Palestinians there in Gaza would step up and then, self-govern and, take care of things. Instead, they voted in Hamas. Yeah, Hamas is made up of a bunch of Palestinians, but right now, I want to tell you that Hamas itself is the problem. It's not the good Palestinian people, folks. And people out here protesting on these campuses, you really need to think about this. There are people, I just read something just a minute ago that someone is saying that you can't really think of Hamas as being like ISIS or Al-Qaeda. That's true. There are some significant differences between Hamas and Al-Qaeda, ISIS, ISIL, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard. Hamas is seeking a state all of its own. They have the opportunity to do it, but they're just screwing it up because they keep launching rockets into Israel, or they keep sending people over there to kill Jewish people. If they would just stop with that and take what you've got and build it, you'd have a great, great, great life right there. I've explained to you why Israel is where it is. There was a strong, deep, burning sense of obligation to this people who had just experienced the death of 6 million of their fellow brothers and sisters and uncles, aunts, mothers, and everybody, family members who were Jewish at the hands of Germans. So there was this huge, deep sense that we had to do something to help them, had to do something to show them that, they deserve a place too, to put them in their own place, to give them their own place to go live, where they had been scattered everywhere. Do you know why they were scattered everywhere? Because they've been chased in and out of their lands for centuries. And everywhere they go, there's some group of people out here are extremist Christians, for instance, and they're the ones who stir up a lot of this stuff too, by the way. Extremist Christians who say they're the ones who killed Jesus. Okay, well, shit. Okay. God almighty. Grow up, folks. That's what I have to say about it. That's just so asinine, it's crazy. I mean, you've walked off a deep end on that one. I actually had somebody come on board and say that. What, about 2 weeks ago? Some of y'all maybe remember. 2 weeks ago, yeah, saying crap like that. Anyway, I just, you know, there comes a point in your life where you've got to take responsibility for yourself, where you are right now in this present time, and you cannot change the past. You can't change tomorrow unless you start working on you today. If you want a better future for tomorrow, do it today. Today is the day to start doing it. All right. Anyway, I haven't even made it to the other news stories yet. Okay, let's drop that one down. All right, Russia warns China of catastrophic nuclear escalation threat. Okay, yeah. Well, we know what that's about, right? Russia has warned of the possibility of a clash between nuclear powers at a forum in Beijing. I do have some news for you. Well, actually, it's my opinion. This is strictly my opinion, okay? If Russia's nuclear capabilities are anything like what its traditional military capabilities are, as we have discovered over the past 2 years or so with their conflict with Ukraine, then their nuclear capabilities, no, they probably aren't what they want you to think they are. However, we can't take the chance either, can we? But nonetheless, that's what I suspect, that you've got an armed force out here that we've all been worried about for decades and decades and decades. Back when it was the Soviet Union, you had the Soviet scare, the Red Scare, and all this kind of stuff, communist scares and frights and all that. Well, it turns out after all these years that the military is, you know, not what we thought it was going to be. Exactly. And I suspect their nuclear forces are exactly the same as their traditional, conventional military forces. Not what we think it's going to be, folks. The only difference is, though, well, no, there's no difference. Anyway, but we have to be aware of that because, you know, we don't want anyone to actually try it and test it out. That is a good point right there. We don't want to try it, test it out. Going on to the next one. Martial artists forced change after transgender athletes dominate women's grappling tournament. This happened in Georgia. This story is 4 hours old or so, published by the Washington Examiner, and obviously the Washington Examiner is in the pocket of the Heritage Foundation and Kevin Roberts. I mean, one is just a mouthpiece of the other. I know that Heritage has got its own thing with the Daily Signal and all that kind of crap, but they're all on the same page. All right, and you have to take it. You got to look. If you're going to look at it, you got to be able to look at it from where they're standing, and then from where we're standing and I'm standing and all that kind of stuff. I mean, just be aware. You can take what they say here and then cut it in half, and that might be near what the truth is, or maybe even less, a quarter. But I will tell you this. If you went through male puberty, now let me just back up and just back a little bit further than that. People have tried to tell me, that, well, you're just a man, talking to me directly. And I say, look, this is my response to that. Since I've never once said anything like this, that genetically I am anything other than an XY male on the macro scale of understanding what that actually means. And if you know biology, you know genetics a little bit, you know that the macro scale is what gives you the XY observation, or the XX if you're female or whatever, genetically female. But when you start looking down and deeper into it, you'll find out that while that may be the case superficially or at the macro level, deep down, those things aren't binary. None of it is. It's more like a smoothly distributed curve, okay? If you know anything about math, it's a smoothly distributed curve between those 2 points, and it's points like that. And everything in between is possible. It's smoothly distributed. Every human trait is that way. Anyway, I don't want to jump off into that. I've done it before, and people go like, oh my God, oh, here she goes talking about science again. Oh my God, do I ever? Yeah, I can get way over in the weeds on this really fast. But anyway, so I will tell people, say, look,
I do not deny that on the macro scale, that genetically my genes say X and Y, male. However, genetic sex is not gender. And I will also tell you this: the genetic XY characteristics and the external expression of those sex characteristics occur in the late first trimester, whereas gender expression, which develops out of the brain, is driven by the hormonal flooding that takes place of the brain, the fetal brain, before birth in the late second, early third trimester, and they don't always have to match. For most people, they're indistinguishable. Your gender and your sex are indistinguishable, and that's why there's such a big fight over it. For most people, they're indistinguishable. But there is a percentage of people where it is not, and I'm in one of those. And transgender people are in one of those. That's just the way it is. That's just nature. But if you aren't willing to go look at the facts and study the science behind it and realize that genetics is that way and not deterministic in strictly those ways, then okay. So let's get back to the story. What I'm saying now is that I went through puberty as a male, okay? And I'm not a big male or anything like that. I'm just, well, average, I suppose, in every way. And, but I've never had the athletic ability to be able to go do a lot of stuff. I ran a lot, or sailed at the Naval Academy. So, I mean, really? Yeah. But if you are in one of those sports like swimming or running or wrestling and where all that matters, if you went through male puberty, your body is slightly different than what it would have been if it had gone through female puberty. You have to think about that, folks. You have to realize that that's the case. And and I get it, that probably pisses some people off out there to hear me say something like that, but I really don't care at this point. You've got to start thinking before you go stick yourself out here and cause problems for the rest of us because, well, you never thought about the rest of us. That's usually what happened. You're only thinking about, I'm just me, I'm just little old me. I'm going to go ahead and do this anyway. And then it turns out that you went through male puberty and you're trying to dominate these women and you end up, these numbers are startling to a lot of people. Here's what I suggest. If you went through male puberty, regardless of what your stature or whatever it is about your body, please stop putting us all in a place where we have to come out and have to pick sides on this. I want to protect all of our transgender people, all of them, all of our gender diverse people. I want to protect them. I feel an obligation to do what I can to use the privilege that I have to try to do everything I can to make sure that we get all the rights and privileges that are entitled to us under the U.S. Constitution, no more and no less, period. But if you're going to put yourself out in front of this and you're going to stick yourself out here with, let's say, martial arts, and I happen to have a friend who participates in that tournament. She's good at it. And I know she would wrap me up in a hurry because there would be no mistaking that one. but anyway, it's like, come on. If you're a transgender woman and you went through male puberty, stay out of these other sports for now until we figure out actually what the best route is and how to best deal with that. Because what you're doing is you're being very selfish when you do that. You drag all of us into this. And so we all get painted with this big, broad brush that says transgender people are just trying to take it away from all the men or the women who are actually, cisgendered. And now I'm on to something about cisgendered. I'll talk to that in just a second. Oh my God, I've talked 30 minutes and I've only covered two news stories. Let's go on. All right, here's one from Kansas. Says Kansas cannot enforce new law on abortion pills or make patients wait 24 hours. Okay, obviously Kansas is going to appeal that. The idea is to go right on up to the Supreme Court. It doesn't matter. That's the whole reason all these things have been put out there anyway. John Hanna, okay, AP political writer, Associated Press 1 hour ago. Okay, let's jump on over to the next one. And this one is actually very interesting. mentioned something like this earlier today, but over the weekend, most of you probably received from me a letter, an email, and it was about this thing here, protesting on campus, the stuff I spent so much talking about earlier. Well, this is Jonathan Turley. This is Jonathan Turley, who happens to be a darling constitutional professor and lawyer over on the right side of the fence and has been opposed to transgender people and done everything in his power to stop us. But in this article, he and I agree. And you can go look it up yourself if you like. Let's see, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' administration orders state universities to ban a pro-Palestinian student organization, the SJP. They are denouncing the SJP for supporting a terrorist organization after the massacre of Israelis by Hamas. And Jonathan Turley says, I've previously read, and there's a link for it, how Hamas is morally and legally a terrorist organization. However, this move, in his view and mine too, violate the First Amendment and chill the exercise of free speech in higher education. State University System Chancellor Ray Rodriguez wrote to university presidents, and there's a link for that if you want to go check it out, Tuesday, directing them to disband chapters of SJP. He quoted the national group's declaration that Palestinian students in exile are part of this movement, not in solidarity with this movement. That is a rather thin rationale for declaring that the student groups are now aiders and abettors of terrorism. Nevertheless, Rodriguez declares, it is a felony under Florida law to knowingly provide material support to a designated foreign terrorist organization. That's under federal law too, I believe. But anyway, Students for Justice in Palestine have been on U.S. campuses for decades, with more than 200 chapters across the United States. And the U.S. Supreme Court has held since 1943, or before that, really, because we've had these same kind of interesting conversations, go to the Supreme Court or go to different courts, since about 1890, probably before that, but I know from around 1890 to about 1904, stuff like this started happening then, and people were clamoring about, you got these activists on campus doing all kinds of crazy shit out there, and we need to stop them because they don't represent the rest of society, and they're causing all these problems, and then they're entitled to that expression of free speech. You can't just shut it off because you don't like it. And that goes for our side too, by the way. That goes for our side too. Just because they say something we don't like, we cannot go out there and demand that they be driven from the public square. We cannot be the ones who tell somebody else that their opinion is so bad and hurtful to us that they can't say that, or they can't do that, or they can't protest about that. If we're doing that, we're hypocrites too. And we don't want to be that, do we? We want to be consistent across the board, and that requires a lot of introspection. Most of us are incapable of that because we're so wrapped up in the things that are happening to our lives right now. At this moment in time, everything around us is just wrapped us up into not being able to see outside the confines of our own heads. We're stuck inside there. All right, so you have to be really careful about these. You can't demand things of other people and expect them to willingly just do that because, well, you said so, or that it hurts your feelings or something like that, or is offensive to you. They are entitled to think those things. They are entitled to believe those things and say those things. And I will tell you this too. Well, let me finish this first. And this was 1949. There was one in 43 too. But anyway, let me see. 49 case Justice William O. Douglas wrote, the right to speak freely and to promote diversity of ideas and programs is therefore one of the chief distinctions that sets us apart from totalitarian regimes. Accordingly, a function of free speech under our system of government is to invite dispute. It may indeed best serve its high purpose when it induces a condition of unrest, creates dissatisfaction with conditions as they are, or even stirs people to anger. Speech is often provocative and challenging. It may strike at prejudices and preconceptions and have profound unsettling effects as it presses for acceptance of an idea. That is why freedom of speech, though not absolute, and this was, he said, this is 49, I say it all the time anyway, is nevertheless protected against censorship or punishment unless shown likely to produce a clear and present danger, and that's key, a clear and present danger of a serious substantive evil that arises far above public inconvenience. That's a tall order. That's a tall, tall thing to get over, a tall bar to crawl across the top of. Annoyance or unrest. There is no room under our Constitution for a more restrictive view, for the alternative would lead to standardization of ideas either by legislatures, courts, or dominant political or community groups. That phrase right there, that's written by Justice William O. Douglas in 1949 in the Terminillo versus City of Chicago case, that is the argument that we should all be using. And